Safika Holdings associate Ntsimbintle Holdings has agreed to the sale of its manganese portfolio to Exxaro Resources. Now, a statement released yesterday says the transaction is subject to fulfillment of or waiver of conditions, including regulatory approvals. Now, these are typical for a transaction of this nature, with completion expected in 2026. Saki Macozoma is the chairman of Ntsimbintle Holdings, and he joins us now. Hello and welcome.
Thank you.
So the statement says that you are a triple BEE company. And how important is that in the GNU context, especially with the DA approaching the courts?
I don't think it's got any relevance. We are proudly a BEE company.
Yes.
We've created a company that has now been valued at about 14 billion rand from a piece of paper. We got license from, we applied like anybody else to the Department of Minerals and Energy as a BEE company. And we have, from that piece of paper that we got there, we are here now.
Yeah.
And those people who say BE has failed or is discriminatory or whatever they are saying are wrong.
Now, South Africa is the leading supplier of manganese. I think 36% of manganese production in 2024. Why now? Why are you selling now?
I think it's a propitious moment in certain respects. In that we had an interested buyer who is interested in the assets genuinely. Secondly, they have the cash resources to put in this, into this. They have a strategic reason because as a coal producer, largely, they are migrating their company away from environmentally detrimental coal. But at the same time, in doing that, they are looking at the energy transition. So all of those factors meant that they could value our company at the right price.
How do the tariffs impact this?
It doesn't, because interestingly, manganese and other minerals are excluded from tariffs.
Yes.
So there's no impact.
Is that part of the AGOA agreement? Does that form part of the AGOA agreement, the manganese?
No.
Because of the minerals, right? No. Okay. And then beside the sale, in terms of your whole portfolio at least, why did you make the announcement now and not wait until the details of the deal were completed in 2026?
No, it's natural to make it now because then you get to a point where you've signed the agreements and everything else. Then why we have to wait until 2026 is regulatory approvals. It is there are many of those in the mining, because there's a change of ownership.
Yes.
So we need to Section 11 approval from the Minister of Minerals and Energy.
So what happens from this step onwards, between now and when the actual sale goes through? How does that all unfold over the next few months?
It's an interesting question, that because anyone buying an asset that's in somebody else's hands will always include what is called a MAC, a material adverse conditions.
Yes.
Meaning that if in our care, because we're still responsible for the assets, we should be able to give the assets as and when they did their due diligence. If there's a deterioration in the assets, they can walk away and say, you are not giving us what we saw then.
Yes.
And therefore, it's in our interest to make sure that the company functions as well as is possible, so that when we hand it over, it is as was at that time of purchase.
Now, what will the impact be of this sale on employment, labor forces?
There is no impact because these are mines that are functioning, that have their own staff, that have got experts and everything else. So that will just be handed over to Exxaro at the time when we conclude the deal. So there is absolutely no impact.
Now, in the biggest scheme of things, what is the significance of the sale?
In the bigger scheme of things, the significance of the sale is the fact that we have, as South Africa, 80% of the world's mineable manganese.
Yeah.
That is onshore.
Yes.
And we have international companies like South 32, like and others that actually mine manganese. This transaction will enable the ownership of the mineral to remain South African. And that's quite important because if we have the world's best manganese assets,
yes.
why are they not owned by South Africans?
Yes.
Amongst other things in this transaction, Exxaro is buying our 20% that is in a company called Jupiter Mines, which is listed in Australia.
Yes.
So that value
Right.
comes back to the
Okay.
JSE.
Okay. And then, am I right in saying that manganese mining has been down in the last GDP forecasts, and mining in general has been down? How does manganese form part of that? Has manganese also been down, or is it just general mining?
Yeah, manganese is pretty stable in terms of production.
Yeah.
The price, of course, moves within a particular range. Manganese is used in the production of steel.
Yes.
So you can't make steel without manganese. So therefore, anybody in the world who wants to manufacture steel needs manganese. But the reality, though, is that we as South Africa are a price taker, even though we own the mines and the resource.
Yes.
And if there's anything that needs to be done in manganese, to make sure that some consolidation happens,
Yes.
because we're actually outcompeting each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen it in other minerals. If you flood the market with material, what's going to happen is the price is going to go down.
Price goes down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that Ntsimbintle Holdings is selling your manganese portfolio, what's next for?
We will cross that bridge when we meet it.
Yes.
At this point, I think our focus is on making sure that this deal gets consummated and that it gets the approvals.
Yeah.
At the end of that process, the shareholders of Ntsimbintle will get cash. They will then decide what they want to do.
Now, besides the sale and talk of business, I'm just going to take it a little bit sideways. Saki Macozoma as a brand, what have you been doing lately? You've been quiet.
I'd say none of the above.
You haven't been quiet. You have been.
No, I'm saying, well, I mean, a transaction of this nature,
Yeah.
There's a lot of work.
Well, that's probably why you've been out of the eye. Yes, the public eye.
There's a lot of work. But if I would try and change my life at this point, I would stay under the radar.
Yeah.
And therefore, I reserve my comments on things.
All right.
I don't get taken up by all these issues.
So if I ask you to comment on the government of national unity, would you? Do you have anything to say about it?
I'm a citizen, and therefore I do care and pay attention to
Yeah.
this. I think somebody said politics is the art of the possible.
Yeah.
And if the elections threw up the numbers that they did,
Yes.
it's inevitable that we should have a government of national unity. Whether it is a government of national unity in essence is another point. But I know of jurisdictions like in Europe where to put together a coalition government takes a year. Mm. We were able to do that in very little time with people with very disparate views. But I think to say, if I have any message to the politicians involved in there, is put country first, not party first.
I think that's absolutely the way to go, for sure. But I think with the whole budget fiasco, if I can call it that, has kind of pointed to disharmony within the government. And would you say that it's probably a good thing that it's happened so early on in the government of national unity, so the government can work through that and then get going?
I suppose one can argue that.
Yeah. What do you think?
No, I think for me it is inevitable that such ruptures will happen in a government of this nature. The important thing is to contain them, and hence I'm saying put country first.
Sure.
I am sorry that it actually got into the public domain, and because in a government of national unity, you ought to be able to discuss all issues within the cabinet rooms and agree or disagree or find a compromise before it gets into the public. So the management of the issue is one issue. But the reality that these things happen is what politics is about.
I've so enjoyed talking to you today. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you.
We will definitely be watching this very closely. And when the deal is done, you'll come back and we'll have another chat and let us know what's on the cards.
I'll be happy to.
Thank you so much for chatting to us. There we go.